Hey liberals, I'm talking to you. Today I want to discuss John Deberry. John Deberry is a Democrat state representative. He made a beautiful speech, but he's a proof of the hypocriticalness of the Democrat Party. Here is a man that does not let his morals compromise his chance for re-election. The Democrat has took him off of their ballot. Almost where he couldn't run, but he was able to get enough signature barely in time to run as an independent, and I hope he wins. And John Deberry, if you listen to this after you win the independent, come over to the Republican Party. We need people like you that's high in morals. But I want y'all to listen to his videos, liberals. I want you to understand where this man's coming from. So please listen.
Or the integrity of any of my colleagues who have spoken before me. That's not for me to do, just as it is not for them to do. We find ourselves doing it quite a bit in this body, and that's unfortunate because folks sent us here not to accuse each other of anything, but to do the job that they sent us to do. And I rise not to go against or support this legislation. I rise because I continue to hear references to what I saw in growing up in this country and growing up in the state of Tennessee as I walked with my father and worked with my father here in the state of Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee, and across this state and across this country. In the middle of what has been referenced to on several occasions, the civil rights movement. And, you know, people continue to refer to this, but I saw it. I saw men and women stand with courage and integrity and class, and they changed the world. They changed the world because what the world could see in them was the lie that was being told about them. I am one of those individuals who walked in back doors because the law said I had to. I'm one of those individuals who rode on the back of the bus on the back seats that were not cushioned because the law said I had to. I went to the water and drank colored water because the law said I had to. I went to a school where everybody looked like me and the country was divided and segregated because the law said that I had to. So all of these things we continue to refer to are the things that me and my generation lived. We saw it for ourselves. We're not reading it in the history books, but we lived it. I went with my father when he and our neighbor got one of those I am a man signs and went downtown Memphis and watched him stand there proudly with Dr. King and other men and women, black and white, who had enough courage to stand up against what was wrong. And the way they did it, they had on their suits, their shirts, their ties, hats, and if it was cold, their overcoats. They locked arms and they marched peacefully. And Dr. King stood for that which was peaceful. Because the world took a look at what was happening in Memphis, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Washington, D.C., and all over this country, we changed the entire world. And we changed it because those men and women had enough gut.
Now, this man is talking about he lived through oppression. Listen to what he says. This is real oppression. So you liberals need to take note and understand that what y'all call oppression today is not oppression. This man lived through this time. What Dr. Luther King worked for. Equal opportunity. Equal opportunity does not equal results. So I want y'all to listen to this man and understand where he's coming from.
Integrity, enough citizenship and love of country, because my father was a Korean War era soldier, as many of those other men and women were. They didn't beg for anything. They didn't beg for citizenship. They demanded it because they were American citizens who paid taxes, who raised children, who paid house notes and rent, and did everything they were supposed to do so that they could demand from this country and its Constitution those things that they were supposed to have. How did they do it? They did it by standing like men and women of integrity and class and common sense and values. When the riot started and folks started burning stuff down, that's when my father took my arm and we left. We left because that was not what we were there for. That was not what Dr. King was there for. That was not what others who are famous in the civil rights days were there for. This was not peaceful. It was not part of our movement, and it only hurt everything. That man lay in a pool of blood. I stood there and watched him make a speech. The building wasn't really full. It was crowded because there was a terrible storm that night. But my daddy was intending, and most certainly, he wanted to hear that speech and wanted me to be there. I gave my seat to a lady who came in wringing wet and stood over, not because there weren't any other seats, but because I could stand against the wall and be closer as he spoke. I watched that man shiver. I watched his voice shake. I watched him tremble because he knew something he knew that he probably wasn't going to leave Memphis. I don't know what providence God had given to make him prepare for this when he said he'd been to the mountaintop. I don't know what he was thinking when he said, I may not get there with you. But something told that good man on that terrible stormy night that something bad was getting ready to happen. Whenever we use the opportunity to do wrong, that policeman that put his foot on that man's neck was wrong. And every one of us in this room decry it. Every one of us in this room condemn it. We say it was wrong. And in America, we have a system of justice. A system of justice that's going to bring the full impact of the law down upon him. And I think every one of us in this room will support that. And we know that man lay there in a pool of blood. This man didn't die surrounded by his children and his wife. He died in a pool of blood from a coward's bullet. And he died on that day. And I remember as we went back to Memphis and all of the riots broke loose, everything he stood for was all of a sudden being torn down. Amen. Until calmer voices came and said, Dr. King was against this. He was against this. He was against this. My family raised money and sent my dad to Washington for that march, where that man stood there and said that he wanted his children judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And all
you get that? Contents of their character, not the color of skin. This reparations, give me, because I'm black, is begging for handout. Martin Luther King never once asked for reparations, never demanded anything except for equal rights, equal opportunity. John Deberry gets it. He's a voice of reason that it was in the liberals' camp, and the liberal threw him out. But please, listen to the rest. I mean, this man is on fire.
We do in America right now is talk about color. Every issue is about race, it's about color. Instead of us sitting down at the table like men and women of common sense and common justice, and understanding that our enemies are looking with a greedy vigilance upon us as we tear ourselves apart eternally. They have been watching us for 50 years, preparing step by step by step by step for us to kill ourselves. And I may not be back here next year. And I'm sure everything I say is going to be misconstrued and misquoted and used against me in November. Fine, because I stand for my father's legacy. I stand for the men and women who acted like they had some sense and some courage and changed this country by being men and women who stood for something. If we don't start standing for something, Don't you know that the people who are looking at what's happening in Washington, in Detroit, in Portland, in Seattle, they're getting emboldened because we act like a bunch of punks, too frightened to stand up and protect our own stuff. You tell me that somebody got the right to tear down property that Tennessee taxpayers paid for? That American taxpayers paid for, and somebody has the right to destroy it, deface it, and tear it down? What kind of people have we become that we can't protect our own stuff? And when the heroes are those who violate the law, our police chief in Memphis, Tennessee, when they shut the bridge down between Memphis and Arkansas, our police chief walked up there because it was a peaceful protest, even though they had shut down that bridge. He walked up there, he talked to the protesters, he let them know that they had a right to protest, and after a while he walked them all off the bridge. Because they conducted themselves properly, he conducted himself properly, and there was no one harmed on that evening. Peaceful protest ends peacefully. Anarchy ends in chaos. And what we see happening right now, any of us with any common sense whatsoever, know that what we see is not peaceful. So we can continue to fool ourselves and mix with words and use rhetoric and public relations in order to frost this stuff over and put a nice picture on what we see that is frightening. I have a nephew who is a policeman who talked about getting attacked the other night. You're telling me?
Like he says, we need to call it as it is. This is not peaceful protesting. He stands for peaceful protesting. He lived peaceful protesting. And what he's saying today is not what's going on. And like he said, people need to stand, people are afraid to protect their property, protect their businesses because of these hoodlums that's out there. We need to recognize this, and we need to stand up for what's right. Martin Luther King did not risk his Martin Luther King did not sacrifice himself for what we see today. And the Democrat Party is putting spin on it. Like he said, it's being spent. These are some of the reasons why John Deberry was kicked out of the Democratic Party. Listen to this man. What has he said that's so offensive? He's telling the truth. And the hypocritical Democrats does not want to hear the truth. What's going on today is not peaceful. We shouldn't be standing behind these criminals. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And we must follow the right path. There's nothing wrong with protesting as long as it's peaceful protesting. Peaceful protesting ends peacefully, not chaos. Only chaos ends in what's going on now. It's only chaos. It's not peaceful. So, this man is on point. And you liberals need to understand this. This is what the Democrat Party is doing. They're dividing. Just why? So they can try to steal the presidential election. That's all this is about. And John Deberry has been kicked out of his party because he disagrees with these ideas. Like I said, he's more than welcome to become a Republican. I voted for Zeb Miller, who was a Republican, was a Democrat, governor of Georgia. He was a Democrat. I voted for him because he was a good man. I would vote for this guy because he speaks the truth. He worries about people, and we need to understand this. It's not about race, like he says. It's everything. Today you hear race this, race that. It's not, and that's the point he's trying to make.
That somebody has the right to throw feces and urine in the face of those that we as taxpayers pay to protect us, and that's okay? What has happened to us? If we don't get this right now, I've got grandchildren I don't want to see the country we're going to have 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. If we don't start acting like we got some guts, right now, brethren, sisterin, friends, colleagues, right now.
Like I said, this is a great, great speech by John Deberry. You know, he's right. Our enemies are enjoying this. There's been no great country. A country that's great usually is destroyed within, and this is what we're seeing: the destruction within, and it's led by the Democratic Party. But this man speaks out against this, and all of a sudden he's the bad guy. His chances of winning as an independent is not very good. They took him off the Democratic Party. They took it nearly late, because I promise you, if they just took him off kicked him out of the Democratic Party, where he had enough time, he could run as a Republican. I guarantee he would have won, because us Republicans is not a party of that. Party of discrimination. We're inclusive. The Democrat Party claims they're inclusive, but if you notice, even with people in their party speaks out about a situation, they kick them out. Republicans yet to kick Mitt Romney out, and we need to kick him out because he's not a true Republican. But I'm just stating facts. Democrat Party is hypocritical, and you can see that this man is not saying anything that's outrageous. He's speaking the truth, but the Democrats don't want to hear the truth. Even within their own party, they don't want to hear the truth. But anyway, this is my video. I hope you like my video. Please subscribe, hit a like, and please share. Peace.